everybody, it's Andrew Plank here with Victoria Real Estate Show and Jen Lowe, resident mortgage broker and extraordinaire. And,
good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, so today we're just we don't have Jane, so the glue that holds this together is not here today. But we're gonna do this, and so we're just gonna quickly jump into some stats. And then we're going to talk a little bit with Jen about the things that we see often with real estate. Well, not often actually, and thankfully, but what kind of things are the real stumbling blocks for a lender when it comes to lending money, not about the person, but about the property, because these are good things to flag when we're looking at properties and good things to understand. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about that.
Sounds good.
Good, okay. Right, so in terms of stats, don't have a lot of stats for you today, but we do have what happened in the last week. 358 new properties went live, 180 properties went pending, so pretty much a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 360 round figure, 180. So half of everything that's listing is selling in the numbers. 125 properties decreased in price though. So price is still really, really a big factor in this, and people are definitely having to adjust. And we've been saying this for weeks. A couple of price increases back on markets. Those are just kind of non numbers really. 108 properties actually transacted and 34 properties expired unsold. So properties are still not selling, but it's a small number really for expired.
And this is just within the last week.
Correct. Yeah. And by all accounts, we're seeing a lot of new inventory coming online. We had a really busy April for new listings, and the word on the street is that there's a lot more coming up. And I guess there's some speculation that might have something to do with mortgage rates. People getting tired of paying lots of money and maybe feeling like they need to downsize or clear out.
Increase their cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's that. Okay, so Jen, let's dive into what's going on with housing and what lenders tend to look for with houses.
Well, first of all, I'll give a quick update kind of this past week from a mortgage rate standpoint as we get closer to the June Bank of Canada meeting, because that's kind of been the date that all along a lot of economists have said that rates are going to come down mid-year 2024. And it's almost like it's like kind of a bit of a roller coaster. It's like, oh, inflation went up. Okay, no, rates aren't going to go up. Oh, yeah, no, actually, the inflation increased quite a bit. So now rates, they're going to postpone the rate increases. The percentage chance of rates going down keeps changing. However, the most recent news is that with the retail sales has gone down quite a bit. So that is definitely increasing the chance of a rate decrease in June.
Okay.
That's good news.
So we're hoping for the economy to do poorly so interest rates can go down. Is that what we're hearing? Yeah.
Pretty much. The Bank of Canada is just needing more and more assurance that it's the right time to drop rates and that it's not going to create a big surge in the market and increase housing prices, because their biggest concern is housing affordability.
I would observe that, and we'll need to see how the April stats come out in May, but I would observe that I'd say that there is some bolstering of price. I was just involved in multiple offer situation yesterday. I've been involved in a number of them. So I would say there's upward pressure on pricing regardless. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's Victoria though, and we are in our own kind of little bubble in a sense, for better or for worse. The rest of Canada is what the Bank of Canada will be looking at, so they'll be looking at it from a wider view.
Most
Um,
definitely.
with what's going on in the States as well, because I understand that they are also, having more inflation than they'd anticipated, or, how does this impact us?
Negatively, like it
Yeah.
reduced the chances of a rate decrease when we got the numbers in from the US
Okay.
last week. But then when we look at the Canadian market and what's happening specifically in Canada, with the retail sales numbers coming down quite a bit, as well as with how much our population has increased,
Right.
that's leading people to believe that the Bank of Canada will drop the overnight lending rate coming this
Okay.
June.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see because there's still April inflation numbers, et cetera. So,
The
like I
death
said,
the death knell for I think the real change for the market in future, if we see a price increase, is where we're going to see. I think a lot of people have been holding their breath and just waiting to see what happens, and at least kind of treading water and waiting for, like, okay, interest rates are high. They've either got a renewal coming up and they're kind of looking at that, or they're on
yeah,
a variable rate and they're dealing with the higher, mortgage costs already, or they're trying to get approval for a mortgage and buy a home for the first time. In any of those scenarios, everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens and treading water while the Bank of Canada has been maintaining. But if they go up, I think a lot of people are going to just, who knows? But if it goes up, that's the wrong move from the perspective of making people able to move forward. But then down is they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if they go down, prices go
yeah,
up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's why they're really holding out. For my clients that are coming up for renewal, I seem right now we really, for those that are coming up for renewal June, July, for most of them, I've got a fixed rate with one lender and I've got a variable rate with another lender.
Right.
And we're just kind of waiting to see how things progress.
So you're actually cherry picking. You're looking through all of the various options and going, okay, based on this lender is actually giving, they've got I guess they're bullish or bearish on, each lender will have a different outlook on what the future holds. So they're trying to bet on that. And
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
When I was at a conference last week, it was so much fun listening. There was 5 major banks that they did a lender panel, and each bank or each lender, their way is the best way, of course. So it was so interesting to hear them kind of banter back and forth, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
The consensus too, from a fixed rate standpoint, it's not going to go down significantly from where we are now. I think it's going to hover around 5% and not change.
Mhm.
The effect and what we're really waiting for is the change on the variable rate.
I mean, historically, 5% is actually quite low.
Yes.
Like,
And historically, the variable rate is normally lower than the fixed. And right now it's not. It's
right,
about 1% higher than the fixed.
right.
So we need to, get those back in line, I assume.
I would assume so as well. Yeah. I'll piggyback on your assumption and trust your judgment.
Sounds good.
So tell me, okay, so I'm out showing properties with clients. I'm helping people sell their homes as well. And, I go through these homes and, the thing I am aware of is lenders will sometimes look at the contract, of course. And in the contract is usually incorporated the property's disclosure statement. In that disclosure statement, there might be some reference to water ingress, or reference to a grow operation of, illegal substances. Or it may be that the house has a 60 amp panel. I'm not sure what the lenders look at from that perspective. I know insurance companies are sometimes going to be concerned around various things that kind of parallel or balance this out, like, heating sources and so forth. but what have you seen in your career, and what kind of roadblocks have you noticed that are kind of the common factors that, and I would say including strata as well, because that's a big one, I think, of where I hear lenders have blacklists on buildings and. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, those kind of red flagged properties are usually properties that have a special assessment in the process, or don't have legal proceedings, something like that. And but even those properties, quite often the information that the lender can have could be out of date. So that special assessment could now be completed. We see an increase in the strata fee because that cost has been it's
baked in,
been completed. So it's important to then, okay, well, yeah, we're aware of the previous situation. However, here's the documents confirming that everything's been completed, and then the system's updated. So something to be aware of that can be out of date.
They can be out of date. It can be out of date on the other side of that too, where there's a developing situation, or there's been a recent AGM where they've talked about, getting a study on a particular problem that's been identified. I just dealt with this on a recent listing. And, the minute sort of watering egress or ingress is mentioned, it gets, quite scary for lenders. Even if it's actually related to a small, it's related to a small isolated part. It could be that the lender looks at it more widely and assumes the worst. But
yes,
yeah.
Yep.
So go ahead.
So I lost my train of thought on that. I was going to say something with, each lender is slightly different. What I do, there's a document called a Form B that I know we're always asking for that. And we're going through, because if there is any legal proceedings, it's got the contingency fund balance. And the contingency fund is that if there's any issues with the property, they've got money to pay for that. All the different boxes that are ticked off, that's what the lender's looking at most closely. And if there's anything that requires further attention, then we have to ask for additional documents.
Okay.
With that, not all lenders want the Form B up front. And quite often they can say, oh, you can just get the lawyer to get a copy, or it can be a condition for the lawyer to review and send in the Form B. I don't do that. I always get the lender to review the Form B and sign off on it right away to avoid, if there's anything showing on there, that's going to come up right before closing.
And that blows all kinds of stuff up. No, information is best presented in advance of removing your conditions and committing 100% to buying a place and putting down deposit. You don't want the lender coming back later and saying, no.
No, actually, we've now, spotted something on the Form B and we don't like it.
Right. Now, that happens too with long closings. There could be there is always the risk something develops over time. And the lawyer might get a new Form B that has updated information from when we realtors pulled the Form B when the property was listed.
Great.
And that's always a risk, but that's that's also comes to asking your clients about the seller, the listing agent, and the property management, what's coming up, and what's going on down this. There's clues sometimes when you do peruse the strata documents about what might be coming down the pipes. But so what about more the single family homes? Are you seeing, what kind of flags or concerns do you see lenders look at with those?
With the condition of the property. So that can be, like, if the property is in fair or poor condition, that can be an issue.
So as is kind of sales?
Yeah, like if you look at the pictures on the MLS listing and it's not looking, it's poorly maintained, the lender may ask for an appraisal. The appraiser would then, decide on the overall condition of the property, and that can be an issue. Lenders really look at the property disclosure statement. Anything noted on there, if there's been any renovations without a permit, we always have to get more information on those items. Knob and tube wiring is always a concern. There's always ways around these things though too. For example, if clients are looking to purchase a fixer-upper type property and it is noted in fair condition, or we can look at a product called a purchase plus improvement mortgage, where we're taking care of those issues, and the lender has a bit of control over that.
Right. So the buyer would actually get lent more money. Do you want to talk about purchase plus improvements, like in a little more detail here, for anyone who's looking at buying a fixer-upper or something that might be on the edge of livability?
Yes. So basically, when we look at the purchase plus improvement mortgage, you're borrowing money to complete the improvement. The lender, you have to provide quotes for the improvement that you're doing, and you have to stick by those improvements that have been approved by the lender. There's usually a maximum of $40,000 or 10% of the purchase price for the improvements, but there's a bit of leniency with that. And then once the improvements are completed, the lender, it gets a little bit complicated. There's a holdback for the money for the improvements at the lawyer. And then once the improvements are completed, we get an appraisal to confirm that those improvements have been completed. And then that money is released back.
Okay. Yeah. So again, I'm just thinking of a property I recently had a client make an offer on, and it needs new roof and new windows, and there's actually some problem with some of the plumbing, and that quickly adds up to over 40,000. But at the same time, you can concentrate or use that stuff to jump you ahead. I know how hard it is for some people to save up just a down payment, and then after you've bought a home that's a fixer-upper, to save up piecemeal for every little bit of improvement you want to do. It's really nice to jump ahead of that and get the major pieces out of the way.
And the advantage is it's tied into your mortgage.
Exactly.
So it's your payment is based on 25 years paying it back, as opposed to then, getting the home and then using a line of credit or something to complete the improvements that you need to do.
Right.
Which then
higher interest rate, and then never paying it off, or trying to pay it off sooner, or absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I definitely see from like the things that tend to sort of snag, I guess, a purchase, there's the insurance side. Again, is there a proper heat source? Is there water? Is there an occupancy permit? And that's obviously something that a lender would look at as well.
That's something that has come up in the past. That's an interesting one. You get back in the day, people build their own home and they get a building permit, but they may not get that final occupancy. So that I have seen that before, which was a bit of a challenge. Self builds as well, making sure that there's that new home warranty.
Right.
That's important. That's also looked at. What else would I? The big one I see is, more information on renovations that were done without a permit.
Okay.
Provide, and then of course, grow ups are an issue.
Yeah, grow ups are always an issue, and it's funny because now you are allowed to, I guess, consume and even grow, but there was at one point in the industry, it was one plant was considered a grow up, and was technically supposed to be disclosed, and we know that the concern is generally for a larger operation where there's enough humidity in the home and somebody's been moving wiring and essentially turned the home into a home-based business and destroyed it. But that stigma can flow with the house over and over again once it's there, and lenders probably do track that
Yes.
as well. So
Yeah.
again, going back to the flagging of homes. So that's of concern. Past fires or anything like that, or?
I haven't dealt with that personally, but yeah, that can come up on the property disclosure statement for sure. That then the lender would dig in and want more information. And that ties in the house insurance as well.
Yeah. I guess, when you just put on the hat of the lender, they're looking at anything that could cause that home to not be saleable in the future or worth less or more difficult to sell, because they're always going to be thinking, if I lend money on this, is number one, is it worth what I'm lending? That's why they bring an appraiser in. Does the buyer have enough money to put down so that there's some buffer there if they do walk away? And then, if there's a problem with this home in future, am I going to get my money back out of it? They don't want to go through that process, but that's something they got to consider. So anything that could cause that is going to cause the adjuster to, not adjuster, sorry, what's the word?
Appraiser. Yeah.
Appraiser. I'm thinking, no, the person at the bank that's looking at the file.
The underwriter.
Underwriter. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. The more unique a property is, the less lenders we have that are interested in lending on it.
Okay, good point. Yeah.
Right? For example, hobby farms. Hobby farms are one that comes up. If you've got, 20 chickens, even though you're allowed to have chickens now, that can be a concern.
They got to hate on for chickens.
Yeah.
Against chickens.
I love fresh eggs. I want to have chickens.
Yeah. But I guess once it's 20, the question is, does this become, is this a commercial listing or not? Yeah. Yeah. And then at what point does GST apply? And I don't know.
If we look at acreages, if there's barns on the property, first question is there animals? Is there, sheep, horses,
really?
etc.? Yeah. And that's something that can limit the amount of lenders.
Interesting. Okay. That's not something I was aware of. So the minute you start buying a larger acreage, you got to be careful how many animals. You could buy an acreage with nothing on it other than the natural flora and fauna.
Yes.
And then after you've got your financing, you could put 30 chickens on there.
Yep.
And the lender is already done. So it's kind of funny that would be a consideration.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, good to know. Good to know, folks. Make a note of that.
And actually, I'm not sure the why on that, because I'm always, it's the first thing I do is I'm looking, if someone's buying an acreage, okay, is there any animals?
Not everybody likes eggs.
Yeah. First question that lenders always ask, or when I'm if I have a listing, if you send me a listing for a property, if someone's having a challenge getting financing, I'll source that out to different lenders and would you lend on this? And they say, is there any animals? But I assume it just goes back to the marketability. How do you, if there's animals on the property, are they being used for farming? Is there business? And how are those animals being relocated to?
Yeah. Okay. Huh. Well, I know. Yeah. And so again, a lot of this can be overcome when you have, strong, large down payment or, really good, vetted, information that you self-employed versus, a good government job. They look at all of these factors, but from the house perspective, it is something that I think a lot of people. I work with people and they say, I'm approved. I'm confident that my bank has told me I'm going to be able to, easily buy within this price point. Let's say they approve me up to $1 million. I just want to buy something up to 800,000. So I know I'm going to have no trouble with financing. And, I just always have to remind them well, it's not just about you.
Yes. a pre-approval, you are pre-approved as a client. The property still hasn't been approved.
Yeah.
So that is so important to make sure that the property is approved as well. As long with it being pre-approved, it can be pretty quick to get that approval back. But yeah, that property does need to be approved, and the documents, especially that property disclosure statement, is looked at the MLS listing. So the information that's put in the listing is also key as well.
This is where it gets into, nuance and legality and ethics, because some people will list a home and then cross off the property disclosure statement. There's a positive legal obligation to disclose anything that is what's called a material latent defect, but anything that could be found in a building inspection, just a normal paid for building inspection, really doesn't have a legal obligation to be disclosed. As realtors, we have this obligation to load up a property disclosure statement with the listing, but it does not have to be filled out. So the seller may not even have had to sign it, but we have to sort of show it. And so that kind of creates this scenario where, I have this saying, and we have this saying, if in doubt, disclose. And I'm an advocate for disclosure, and in some cases over disclosure, because I feel like it gives buyers more confidence moving forward, as opposed to feeling like something's hidden. But you've also got to be really careful in your language and wording on these documents so that you are both truthful, but not over disclosing in a way that causes your sale to fall apart.
Yes. You don't want to open too big of a can of worms.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or a can of chickens. Or
you open the can of worms, the chickens all swarm in, and you're
you got a farm and everything's gone.
No, over 20 worms. It's a problem. So okay. So I think we've kind of whipped this horse.
If Jane's watching, she's just shaking her head right now.
You're going to have to delete this one too. No, this has been fun.
Perfect.
So anyone, let's see here. First of all, let's go over to this. If you guys did have fun today, please do give us a like and consider subscribing. We would love to hear your comments, and we would love for you to share it out. And we will be getting, we're going to have to get some photography here and get Jen in on this, because she is a regular part of the show now. Yes, thank you for coming once again, Jen. And let's see here now. I'm operating this thing, so I've got to try to figure out how to do Jen, you've been so great. Right. And people want to reach out with questions. How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm at 250-217-4925, and my email is j.low@dominionlending.ca and website jenlow.ca.
Okay, great, Jen. Thank you. And yeah, again, folks, reach out to Jen if you have any questions. If you want to reach me, I'm Andrew Plank, and I'm at 250-360-6106. Email is info@andrewplank.com. Website is andrewplank.com. And I'm on Instagram under Plank Andrew, because I think Andrew Plank was taken, or I don't know. And let's give a shout out to Jane, who is absent today, but is here in our hearts. Jane Johnston, she's at 250-744-0775. You can email her at briarhillgroup@gmail.com. And her website is briarhillgroup.com. And we have our shows hosted both on our own websites, my andrewplank.com website, as well as Jane's VictoriaRealEstateShow.com. She is Realty Teacher _Remax _Victoria on Instagram. I'm all exhausted. I'm going to finish soon. She is part of the Briar Hill Group team. Okay, good. Great. I think that's it. And Jen, anything to finish up with?
No, we'll see what next week brings in the interest rate world.
Yeah, okay. Looking forward to hearing all about it. Okay, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.